The grand throne room of the Threxian Empire shimmered with golden light. Hundreds of alien nobles stood silent, their eyes glowing in different shades of blue and green. Every gaze was fixed on one man, and a human. Captain Elias Ward, an envoy from Earth, stood at the center of the hall. His heart was beating fast, but his face stayed calm. He had faced war, hunger, and endless space voyages. But standing before the alien queen was something else entirely. The Queen of the Threxians. Her Majesty Cirith sat upon a throne carved from crystal and steel. Her tall, elegant form was wrapped in silver armor, and her long white hair fell over her shoulders like a waterfall of light. Her eyes were cold, bright, and sharp, eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. When she spoke, her voice echoed through the room, deep and commanding. "Human envoy," she said. "You come to speak for your species. Let us see if your tongue holds truth or only arrogance." Elias bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty," he began, touching the small silver ring in his ear, his translator device. It was the only thing that allowed him to speak the Threxian language. Without it, everything he said would be nothing but meaningless sound. He had practiced his words 1,000 times. All he needed to do was remain calm, respectful, and careful. But fate had other plans. Elias smiled politely and said, "It's an honor to meet you, Your Majesty." The device crackled softly in his ear, then sparked. A small light blinked red. Before Elias could react, the device translated his words aloud into Threxian. But instead of "Your Majesty," the alien words that came out were, "My wife." The entire room froze. The nobles gasped in horror. The sound of armor shifting filled the air as Threxian guards stepped forward, gripping their weapons tightly. Elias blinked in confusion, not yet realizing what had happened. The queen tilted her head, her glowing eyes narrowing. "What did you just call me, human?" Elias froze. His mind went blank. He looked down at the translator device, his heart skipping a beat. "Wait, no, I didn't mean that. It must be—" Before he could finish, the translator glitched again. Static buzzed, and once more the device spoke in Threxian. "My wife." Gasps turned into murmurs. Some nobles whispered angrily. One guard stepped closer, but Queen Cirith raised her hand, stopping them. Her expression was unreadable, caught somewhere between shock and curiosity. She stood slowly, her tall figure casting a shadow over the trembling human. Her voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut steel. "You dare speak such words before my entire court? Do you humans often speak to queens this way?" Elias raised his hands in panic. No, it's a mistake. The device, it's broken." But the device didn't understand him properly. When he said "it's broken," the translator said "it's fate." The crowd gasped again. Queen Cirith's eyes widened slightly. "Fate?" she repeated, her tone softening just a little. "You think this is destiny?" Elias felt sweat on his forehead. "No, that's not—" The device once again betrayed him. His words came out as, "Please accept my heart," the guard shouted. One even raised his weapon, but the queen lifted her hand again. For a long moment there was only silence, the heavy, suffocating silence of hundreds watching something unbelievable unfold. Finally, Queen Cirith stepped closer. Her armor shimmered in the light as she looked down at him. "You are a strange creature, human," she said slowly. "Few dare to speak to me this way, yet your eyes hold no fear." Elias's mouth went dry. He didn't know what to say anymore. Every word he spoke made things worse. He stood there, frozen, while the queen continued to study him with an expression that seemed less angry now and more intrigued. Then she turned to her court. By Threxian law, words spoken in front of the crown cannot be taken lightly. The hall erupted into whispers. Elias's heart stopped. "Wait, what do you mean?" Queen Cirith smiled faintly, her silver eyes gleaming. "It means, human, that you have just claimed me before witnesses. You called me wife 3 times, and in Threxian tradition, that is a binding vow." Elias's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His mission of peace had turned into a royal disaster, and as the queen's words echoed through the hall, Elias realized one terrible, undeniable truth. The translator had just married him to an alien queen. Elias sat in a quiet chamber, his hands trembling slightly as he tried to fix the translator device. It had been hours since the incident in the throne room. The guards had escorted him here, not roughly but firmly, like someone too dangerous to be free yet too important to harm. He sighed, staring at the little ring that had caused this nightmare. "You had one job," he muttered under his breath. "Just one job." Translate. He turned it over in his fingers, watching the small red indicator flicker weakly. The room was silent except for the hum of alien machinery outside. Through the window, he could see the glowing city of Threxia stretching to the horizon, massive towers, floating bridges, and ships drifting like fireflies in the sky. He was supposed to negotiate peace. Instead, he had accidentally proposed marriage to the most powerful woman in the Empire. The door slid open with a low hiss. Elias jumped to his feet. 2 royal guards entered first, followed by Queen Cirith herself. She wore no armor this time, only a long dark robe that shimmered with blue light. Her hair was tied back, her expression unreadable. The guards bowed and left, sealing the door behind her. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just looked at him, calm, quiet, almost curious. Elias finally broke the silence. "Your Majesty, I swear I didn't mean to insult you. It was a machine failure." "I can explain." The Queen raised her hand, silencing him. "You already explained." "Many times," she said softly. "But your translator speaks differently each time. Perhaps it tells more truth than you realize." Elias frowned in confusion. "Truth? What truth?" She began to walk slowly around the room, her eyes studying the human like a scientist observing something rare. "3 times you called me wife. 3 times in front of my council. Under Threxian custom, those words cannot be taken back. You made a vow, even if you claim it was by accident. But it was a mistake," he said quickly. "Where I come from, words don't work like that. You don't marry someone by saying the wrong thing." The Queen stopped and turned to him. "And yet," she said, her voice low, "you humans value promises, do you not? You value love, honor, loyalty. Are you saying your people's words mean nothing?" Elias's mouth opened, then closed again. He couldn't argue. She was right, humans did value promises. Just not like this. He rubbed his face tiredly. "I came here to make peace, not vows." A faint smile touched her lips. "Perhaps peace and vows are not so different," Elias blinked. "What do you mean?" The Queen stepped closer, her silver eyes meeting his. "I have seen many envoys, many warriors, many liars. They all came to take or to deceive. You came to speak, to understand. You did not tremble before me. You did not hide your fear. That is rare, human. Perhaps the stars themselves played a part in your mistake." He swallowed hard. "Are you saying you actually believe it? That I meant to claim me?" She finished for him, raising one elegant brow. "Perhaps. Or perhaps fate claimed us both." Elias shook his head in disbelief. "This is madness." "Perhaps," she said quietly. "But Threxian law binds us." The words were spoken, the vow was witnessed. "If I reject it, it will dishonor my throne. If I accept it, it will unite our worlds." He stared at her, shocked. "You can't be serious." Her gaze softened for just a moment. "Do not fear, human. I do not take you as a slave or a trophy. You are curious to me. I will keep you here under my protection. You will learn our ways. You will eat at my table. You will stand beside me." Elias felt his heart sink. "So I'm your prisoner?" The Queen tilted her head. "No, you are my husband." He couldn't breathe for a moment. The words hit him like a thunderclap. As she turned to leave, the door sliding open behind her, she added softly, "Perhaps in time, you will see the meaning of your own words." Then she was gone, leaving Elias alone once more. A man trapped not by chains, but by the strange twist of fate and a broken machine. He looked down at the flickering translator device again, whispering bitterly, "Guess you really did change my life." Outside, the alien city glowed brighter than ever, as if mocking him. But somewhere deep inside, beneath his confusion and fear, Elias felt something strange. A pull. A quiet curiosity about the Queen who had just claimed his destiny. Days passed slowly inside the grand palace of Threxia. The sky outside always shimmered with colors Elias had never seen before. Purple clouds glowing like soft lanterns, and floating ships moving gracefully between the towers. It was beautiful, but for Elias it felt like a golden cage. Every morning alien attendants brought him strange food that smelled like sweet metal. They bowed to him, calling him consort of the Queen. Every time he heard it, his heart sank a little. He wanted to laugh, to tell them it was all a mistake, but in the Queen's empire, no one doubted her word. Elias spent most of his time walking through the vast corridors, guarded by silent Threxian soldiers. Everything around him was carved with symbols and glowing art that told the story of the Queen's victories. She had ruled for decades. She had defeated empires, tamed beasts, and united warring tribes. Yet in every portrait her eyes looked the same, proud, distant, and alone. On the fourth evening, a royal attendant approached him. "The Queen invites you to dine with her, my lord," the alien said politely. Elias hesitated. "Tell her he stopped himself. Refusing her would probably cause more trouble. He sighed. "Fine, lead the way." The dining hall was breathtaking. A long crystal table stretched across the room, with golden candles floating in the air. The Queen sat at the far end, dressed in a silver gown that reflected the candlelight like starlight. She looked less like a warrior tonight and more like a legend come to life. "Sit," she said gently, motioning to the seat beside her. Elias obeyed, unsure what to expect. The food was a mix of glowing fruits and strange meats. He barely touched them, afraid of offending her but too anxious to eat. For a while, neither spoke. Then the Queen broke the silence. "Do you find our food unpleasant?" Elias shook his head quickly. "No, it's just different." "I'm not used to it," she smiled faintly. "Different does not mean bad, Captain Ward. Sometimes difference is a sign of new understanding." He looked up, surprised by her softer tone. "You sound like you've been thinking about that a lot." "I have ruled a long time," she said, looking into the distance. "Power gives me everything, except peace. Every alliance I make is built on fear or duty. When your words bound us by accident, my court was shocked. But I wondered, what if fate was showing me another path?" Elias blinked. "A path that starts with a broken translator?" Her lips curved slightly. "Perhaps even broken things have meaning." He couldn't help but smile at that. "You really believe that, don't you?" "I believe," she said softly, "that sometimes the stars laugh at our plans." They talked for hours after that, about Earth, about humanity's wars and dreams, about what it meant to love and to lose. Elias told her how humans fought not only for survival but for each other. The Queen listened silently, her cold eyes slowly warming. At one point she asked, "Do humans also feel loneliness, even among millions?" Elias looked down. "More than you think," he whispered. Something in his voice made her pause. She turned her head slightly, studying him. "Then perhaps," she said, "you understand me more than I expected." A gentle silence fell between them. For the first time it didn't feel awkward, it felt peaceful. As the night grew late, the Queen stood. "Come," she said. "I will show you something." She led him through a corridor that opened into a massive garden under a glass dome. Glowing plants surrounded them and silver birds floated in the air like spirits. "This," she said quietly, "is where I come when I grow tired of ruling. It is the only place where I can feel the stars breathe." Elias looked around in awe. "It's beautiful," he said softly. She turned to him, her eyes shining. "Beauty often hides pain, Captain. You see my empire, my throne, my strength. But every victory I won cost me something. My people loved their queen. But no one knows Cyrith, the woman behind the crown." Elias looked at her, really looked at her this time, and for the first time, he saw not an alien ruler but a soul tired of loneliness. He took a slow breath. "Then maybe it's time someone did." For a moment, the Queen didn't reply. Her expression softened, and she whispered almost to herself. Perhaps fate was not mistaken after all. As they stood beneath the glowing trees, the human and the alien Queen shared a silence that spoke louder than any words. In that quiet, strange night, something began to change. Not because of a glitch, but because two hearts from different worlds had started to understand each other. The peace that had quietly grown inside the palace did not last long. It was midnight, when the first explosion shook the royal walls. Elias woke up to the sound of alarms blaring through the corridors, a deep, metallic roar echoing across the entire palace. The soft lights in his chamber turned red, warning of an invasion. He ran to the window and saw the impossible. Warships in the sky, black and burning, firing beams of fire into the capital below. The Threxian city, which had looked like a sea of stars the night before, was now a field of smoke and chaos. Elias grabbed his jacket and rushed to the door, but two guards were already there. "Stay inside, consort," one of them ordered. "The Queen will handle this." Elias clenched his fists. "Like hell I'm hiding while people die." He pushed past them, ignoring their protests. The corridors were filled with panicking attendants, running soldiers, and the sound of distant battle. The whole palace trembled with the thunder of explosions. When he reached the war hall, he found Queen Cirith standing in full armor once again, the same silver armor that had shone the first day they met. Her long hair was tied tightly behind her, her face calm but fierce. The glow of the command screens reflected off her pale skin. She turned when she saw him. "You should not be here," she said sharply. Elias took a step closer. "You're going to war, aren't you?" "I am defending my people," she replied. "The Karth Dominion has broken the peace. They aim for my throne." "Then let me help," he said. The queen frowned. "You are not trained in our weapons." "I've fought wars before," Elias said firmly. "On Earth, I was a soldier before I became an envoy. You need every hand you can get." Her eyes softened slightly. "You surprise me, human. You could have stayed safe." "Why risk your life?" Elias met her gaze. "Because I can't watch others fight and die while I do nothing. That's not who we are. And because—" He hesitated. "Because I made a promise, and even if it was by accident. You called me husband, and where I come from, husbands don't run when danger comes." For the first time, the queen's lips curved into a faint, genuine smile. "Then stand beside me, Elias Ward. Let us see if the stars truly favor you." Moments later, they stood on the palace balcony as fighter ships flew overhead. The queen gave orders to her generals, her voice steady and powerful. She moved with the grace of a warrior, commanding respect from every soldier around her. Elias followed her to the defense line, a huge open plaza where alien guards prepared for combat. They handed him a pulse rifle designed for human grip. He felt the familiar weight in his hands and took a deep breath. The enemy ships descended, their soldiers spilling out like shadows. Beams of red light streaked across the sky. The battle began. Elias and Cirith fought side by side. Her spear glowed with blue energy, each swing cutting through armor like fire through paper. She moved with strength and elegance, her every motion precise. Elias covered her with accurate bursts from his rifle, picking off enemies who came too close. At one point, an explosion threw them both backward. Smoke filled the air. Elias coughed, his ears ringing. Through the haze, he saw the queen standing again, defiant and unbroken, shouting orders even as debris fell around her. She looked like a goddess of war, fierce, unstoppable, and radiant in the chaos. He found himself shouting, "We've got this, Your Majesty!" She turned briefly, her eyes blazing, and said, "No. Tonight, call me Cirith." Together, they fought until dawn. Every strike, every breath, every shout drew them closer. Around them, the city burned, but the palace still stood, because neither of them gave up. When the enemy ships finally retreated into the darkness, the queen stood on the highest balcony. Her armor scorched, her crown cracked, but her spirit unbroken. Elias stood beside her, exhausted but alive. The sun began to rise, lighting the smoke with gold. Elias looked at her and said quietly, "You were incredible." She turned to him, eyes filled with pride and something softer, something human. "So were you, Elias Ward, perhaps. The stars were right about you after all, and as the light touched their faces, both warrior and human knew something had changed between them, not just a bond of survival, but the beginning of something deeper, born from fire and courage." The morning after the great battle, the skies above Threxia were filled with smoke. The once bright city now burned in patches of red and black. The war had ended, but the cost was written across every broken tower and every silent street. Elias walked through the ruins of the palace courtyard, his uniform torn, his hands stained with soot and blood. Around him, medics moved quickly, carrying the wounded. Threxian soldiers nodded at him with quiet respect, the human who had fought beside their queen. But Elias didn't care for the praise. His eyes searched only for one person. "Where's the queen?" he asked a guard. "Where's Cirith?" The guard hesitated, then looked away. She was injured, protecting the command bridge. Elias didn't wait for more. He ran through the shattered corridors, heart pounding like thunder. The palace that once gleamed now lay in ruins. Walls cracked, banners torn, flames flickering in corners. He found her at last in the grand hall, surrounded by healers. She lay on the floor, her armor shattered, her silver hair darkened with dust and blood. The sight hit him like a blade to the heart. "Cirith!" he shouted, running to her side. The healer stepped back as Elias knelt beside her. Her breathing was weak, each inhale a struggle. Her eyes fluttered open at his voice, those glowing silver eyes, dim but still beautiful. "Elias," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here." He gripped her hand tightly. "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." She tried to smile, but it hurt her. "The battle is over, isn't it?" "Yes," Elias said quickly. "We won. The enemy retreated. You saved your people." Her gaze drifted to the broken ceiling above them. "Good," she breathed out softly. "Then it was worth it." Elias shook his head. "No, not like this. You can't die, do you hear me? You're the reason they fight. You're the reason this empire stands." Her hand trembled in his. "And what about you, human?" she whispered. "Why do you fight so fiercely? You could have left when the alarms began." He swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "Because I couldn't leave you." Her eyes turned toward him again, searching his face. "You stayed for me?" He nodded, tears burning his eyes. "I stayed because I made a promise, even if it started by mistake. But somewhere along the way, I meant it." The Queen's lips curved faintly, her voice barely a whisper. "Strange human, you called me wife once, and the stars heard you." Elias felt a lump in his throat. "Don't talk like that. You're not done yet. I'm getting you to the med bay." He tried to lift her, but she winced in pain. Her armor had burned deep into her skin. Still, he refused to stop. He tore off his own jacket and wrapped it around her, ignoring the blood and heat. "Hold on," he said, his voice trembling. "Please, Sirith. Just hold on." Her fingers brushed against his cheek, weak but gentle. "Your kind is full of fire," she whispered. "That's why I feared humans. But now I see the truth. Your strength is not just in battle. It's in heart." Elias could barely speak. "Then promise me you'll live to see more of it." She smiled faintly. "If the stars allow." Then her body went limp in his arms. "No," Elias shouted, shaking her gently. "Sirith, don't you dare give up." He lifted her in his arms, ignoring the shouts of guards and medics, and carried her through the burning hallways. The fire roared around him, but he didn't care. He kicked open the doors to the healing chamber and laid her on the glowing bed. "Save her," he demanded. "Do whatever it takes." The Threxian healers nodded and surrounded her, their hands glowing with energy. Elias stepped back, his chest heaving. He watched as they worked for hours, never moving, never blinking. The Queen's heartbeat flickered weakly on the monitor. When the head healer finally turned to him, her face was grave. "She lives, but barely. The damage is deep. She may not wake again." Elias's body went cold. He looked at Sirith, so still and silent, and felt something in him shatter. He took her hand again and whispered, "You once said the stars laugh at our plans. Then I'll make them listen. I'm not leaving you, not now, not ever." Outside, the dawn rose again over the scarred city, soft light touching the ruins, promising a new day. But inside that room, Elias Ward sat beside his queen, refusing to let her face the darkness alone. And for the first time, he prayed to the stars. Not as a soldier, but as a man who had finally learned what his heart truly wanted. Days passed, but the Queen of Threxia did not wake. Her body lay still under the pale blue healing light, her breathing slow and shallow. The medical chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Outside, the city worked to rebuild, but inside this room, time itself seemed to have stopped. Elias never left her side. He sat by her bed day and night, his hands always near hers, afraid that if he looked away, she might disappear. His uniform was torn, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, but he didn't care. The healers brought food, but he rarely ate. They begged him to rest, but he refused. "She fought for all of you," he said one night, his voice hoarse. "The least I can do is fight for her life." Sometimes, when the room was silent, he talked to her, softly, like speaking to a memory. "You once said humans burn too fast," he whispered, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Maybe that's true, but even a short flame can warm the coldest place." He smiled weakly at his own words. "You made me see that, Sirith. You made me care." He didn't know if she could hear him, but somewhere deep inside he hoped she did. Every morning he cleaned the ash from her armor and polished the golden crest she had worn. Every night he sat in the same chair, watching her chest rise and fall, whispering the same quiet promise, "You're not alone." The healers watched him with a kind of awe. Some whispered that the human's love might call the Queen's spirit back. Others said he was only breaking his own heart, but none dared to ask him to leave. One evening, when the crimson light of sunset filled the room, Elias spoke again. "You know," he said softly, "back on Earth, we have a story about sleeping queens. They say that if someone truly loves them, they'll wake up again." He looked at her pale face and smiled sadly. "I don't know if that's real, but I'd wait forever to find out." He leaned closer, resting his forehead against her hand. "So please wake up, Cyrith. The stars still need you. I still need you." Outside, the rebuilding continued. The Threxian banners were raised again, the people singing songs of victory. They spoke of a brave queen and the human who fought beside her, the foreigner who refused to bow, who risked everything to save their ruler. And every time someone entered the med bay, they found him there, the human soldier sitting beside his queen like a silent guardian. Weeks passed. Then, one night, the lights in the chamber flickered. Elias opened his eyes from a light sleep. The healing machine hummed louder. He stood up instantly. The monitors flashed and her heartbeat was getting stronger. He stepped closer, his heart racing. "Cyrith, can you hear me?" Her fingers twitched slightly. He froze, afraid to even breathe. Then her lips parted and a weak voice escaped, barely a whisper. "Elias?" His knees almost gave out. He leaned forward, tears instantly filling his eyes. "I'm here." "I'm right here." Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing those silver eyes, dim, tired, but alive. She blinked slowly, confused. I saw the stars. They told me to return." Elias laughed through his tears. "Then I guess they listened to me for once." She smiled faintly, her voice trembling. "You didn't leave?" "Never," he said. "I told you I'd stay. Always." Her hand rose weakly, brushing against his cheek. "You foolish human," she whispered. "You make even pain feel warm." He caught her hand and pressed it gently against his heart. "You gave me something worth fighting for." The healers rushed in, their eyes wide with shock and joy. The queen was awake. The news spread through the palace within minutes. "The queen lives, the queen lives." Outside, the people cheered. The bells rang across the city and lights filled the night sky. But inside that quiet chamber, only two souls mattered, a human and a queen, holding each other's hands after the storm. For the first time in weeks, Elias smiled, not the tired smile of a soldier, but the soft, peaceful smile of a man who had found something greater than victory. And as the queen looked at him with tired eyes full of gratitude, she whispered softly, "Perhaps the stars made no mistake when you called me wife." Elias chuckled, brushing her hand gently. "Then let's not prove them wrong." The queen smiled again, weak but real, and closed her eyes, not to sleep but to rest at last. And that night, as the city celebrated its new dawn, the human who once called her wife by accident realized maybe it had never been an accident at all. The queen recovered slowly, but every sunrise brought more color back to her face. Elias was always there, reading reports, bringing her meals, or just sitting beside her while she rested. He spoke less now, but his eyes said everything: gratitude, care, something deeper. Cyrith often watched him quietly. She had seen many warriors in her life, fierce, proud, and strong. But Elias was different. His strength wasn't just in his muscles. It was in his heart, in the way he carried others' pain like it was his own. One morning she found him standing by the large window of her chamber, watching the twin suns rise over the Threxian capital. His uniform was clean now, though still worn. He looked like someone who didn't quite belong but refused to leave. "You stare at my world like it's something fragile," she said softly from behind him. He turned, smiling gently. "It is fragile. Every world is. We just forget that until it almost ends." Cyrith stepped closer, her white cloak brushing the floor. "And yet you stayed to protect a world that wasn't yours." He shrugged slightly. "Maybe it became mine somewhere along the way." Their eyes met, human blue against alien silver, and for a moment, no words were needed. The translator device on his collar glowed faintly, but neither of them cared about the technology that had once caused so much confusion. Later that day, the council requested her presence. The great chamber was filled with nobles, generals, and advisors. When the queen entered, the hall fell silent. Her voice, though softer now, still carried the weight of command. "The battle is over," she said. "But peace is fragile. We must rebuild not with fear, but with unity." Some of the nobles protested. Your Majesty, this human, she raised her hand, silencing them. This human saved me. He saved Threxia. Without him, there would be no queen to speak today. Elias bowed his head slightly, uncomfortable under all the attention. But the queen's eyes never left him. He will remain here as my ally, and as someone who has earned the right to stand beside me. The chamber buzzed with whispers. Some were shocked, others respectful. A few looked angry, but none dared to speak against her again. After the meeting, Elias followed her out into the gardens, a quiet place filled with glowing plants that hummed softly in the night. You didn't have to say all that, he murmured. I'm just a soldier. I only did what anyone would do. No, she said firmly, turning to face him. You did what no one else dared to do. She stepped closer, her voice gentle now. When everyone saw me as a queen, you saw me as a person. You spoke to me, laughed with me, even argued with me. You called me wife, by mistake perhaps, but you treated me like more than a title. Elias smiled faintly, looking away. That was the translator glitch. Not bravery. Maybe, she whispered. But maybe the stars were just helping us understand what the heart already knew. He looked at her then, really looked, and saw the truth in her eyes. Aunt,